Hello, guys. Um, I want to start my talk with a question. Do you know what people say when life feels impossible? For most people, they say, just wait, the stars will align. But I've learned something different. In my story, the stars do not align by chance, they align through effort, through struggle, and through persistence. This theme feels personal to me because my journey started in a place far away in the eastern tip of Indonesia, where the stars often felt very far away and dreams felt unreachable. I grew up in Kupang, in Nusa Tenggara Timur, a region of incredible natural beauty, but the education system is often labeled as left behind. People even tend to look down on us. I remember sitting in a classroom where the expectations were already low and the ambition felt very empty and hollow. All eyes and hopes were closed, and people didn't expect very much from us. I saw how easily people accepted limits placed on them based on where they were born, not based on what they are capable of. A condition that, of course, does not support the young people in discovering and developing their potential. I saw young people without hope and ambition forced to believe that we have lost before even stepping into the arena, forced to abandon our ideals and our dreams. And seeing this condition, I realized that it hurts. Losing hurts. I did not want to lose, especially if I had to lose before fighting. I need to give everything, not to lose to my surroundings, not to lose to myself. I know that I have to get out of this condition. And that mindset led to everything that came after. Long story short, I grew into my teenage years. I went to SMA Catholic Giovanni Kupang. It was one of the best high school in my hometown. And I was selected to be in an accelerated program where I could finish the high school in 2 years instead of three. There were only 9 students of us. It was a small room, but the competition felt very huge to me because everyone had their territory. I remember my friend Joseph, who was untouchable in biology. I have my friend Donald, who was owning physics. And me, I needed a field that could be my dominance. Back then, in my time, we didn't even study chemistry in junior high. So when chemistry appeared in high school, it felt like a completely new universe to me. But instead of being intimidated by my classmates, I was hooked. And I told myself that chemistry should be my territory, should be my field of dominance. So I began to commit deeply in chemistry. I studied chemistry day and night, formula, concept, everything, until it became my instinct. And little by little, chemistry became more than a subject. Chemistry became my identity. By the time I graduated, I wasn't just good at chemistry, I was the best in chemistry at my school, even winning the chemistry Olympiad in the province. So when I look back, I'm grateful that my hard work in high school opened a door I once thought was not possible. I was accepted into one of the best universities of Indonesia. It is this place, Universitas Indonesia, UI. Through the PPKB track, I was invited by UI. And coming from Nusa Tenggara Timur, that moment seems unreal to me. How come? And I joined UI in a very young age. I was 16 years old at the time. I felt completely outmatched in the first semester. I remember sitting in discussion, listening to my classmates argue with confidence and speed, and realizing I could not longer keep up the way I used to. The topics felt deeper, the pace seemed brutal to me, and the expectations were higher than anything I have experienced before. There were moments when I studied hard, really hard, and yet the result still didn't reflect my effort. I remember walking out of an examination and I think I have done everything I could, but then seeing the score, I'm feeling my stomach drop. And that was the first time I truly realized I was no longer the best in chemistry, not even close. And for someone who had built the confidence through the past achievement, that realization hurt. And at that point, I felt like a failure, genuinely. But here's what the college time taught me. Failure doesn't always mean the end. Sometimes it's the beginning of a new version of you. So I made another deliberate decision. I stopped comparing myself to the old me and started focusing on the next me. I began rebuilding step by step. I asked more questions and I kept reminding myself that confidence is not something that you inherit. It's something that you should build and rebuild again and again. And I didn't rebuild my confidence only through academics. To stay grounded, I also pushed myself to join the extracurricular activities in Pusgiwa at the time. I needed a space where I could breathe, where I could feel progress again. So that's when I found myself competing in Asteroid UI. Asteroid UI was Art and Sport Olympiad back in 2009. I played table tennis and I won bronze medal at the time. And for some people it might be small achievement, but for me it was deeply meaningful. Why? Because it reminded me that I still had the strength, I still had the discipline and the ability to compete with others. And that period shaped me. The college time humbled me and also trained me. It forced me to adapt, to work hard, and to rebuild my confidence from the ground up. I learned that excellence is not always being the best in the room, but sometimes excellence is staying in the room long enough to grow and to be better. And once I accepted that reality, I decided I would adapt and I would fight my way back. I learned how to endure it. I endured the long nights, forcing my eyes to stay open as I redid my chemistry problem again and again. I trained myself to stay focused and to sit still and to read my thick chemistry books until the material now finally made sense to me. I simply could not accept not understanding something. And deep inside, I carried a stubborn belief that wherever I stand, I must earn my place through mastery, not excuses. Excuses is for mediocres, and I'm not one of them. There were nights I went to sleep with disappointment after studying hard, after trying everything, but still falling short. But the next morning, I have to start again, slowly, painfully, with repetition, with discipline. Concept that once felt absurd to me now started become clear. Discussion that used to sound like a different language now become understandable. I began to speak with confidence, with speed, not because the environment got easier, but because I got stronger. And in the end, I didn't just survive Universitas Indonesia, I didn't just endure UI, I thrived. I graduated cum laude with the highest GPA in the chemistry department when I was 19 years old. I became the best in a place that I once thought would break me. Not because of my educational privilege, but because I refuse to let my background determine my future. I learned the pain of failure, and I learned how to stand up from it with resilience. After graduating from UI, I was accepted. I continued with a master PhD combined program at Institut Teknologi Bandung, at ITB, through a competitive scholarship. It was called PMDSU, and I was the first batch. And the selection process at the time was intense because it was not about having good grades, having highest GPA, but it's also about the research mindset and whether I have the long-term commitment to survive a program that was designed to accelerate me from the fresh graduate into the doctoral PhD trajectory. And I still remember how tight the recruitment, multiple stages of screening and interview and evaluations to prove not only my academic record, but also my motivation and clarity of purpose. In a way, it felt like I'm stepping into another world. I was competing with the top graduates, and I could not realize, I could not be dependent to my past achievement alone. I have to convince people on paper and in person that I was ready to be trained at the highest level. So this phase brought me into a new world, into nanotechnology. My research was about nanotechnology, a field I had to grow from scratch. And for those who are not familiar with the nanotechnology, it is the science that studies and manipulates materials at the nanometer scale, 1 billion of a meter, where the materials at nanoscale, they exhibit unique and different properties, different than the macro scale that we have experienced daily. And they open opportunities to create new devices, new materials, and new technological developments. Clean energies, electrical vehicles, your smartphone, your smart gadget, they rely on the development of nanoscience and nanotechnology. And to make this idea easier, just picture the Iron Man nanosuit in the Avengers Infinity War. Of course, it's science fiction. Today's technology is nowhere near that level of instant, fully transforming armor. But the concept is rooted in nanotechnology, in the very imagination of nanotechnology. Materials engineered at the small scales can behave in extraordinary way, adapt, self-assemble, and responds rapidly to the environment. It captures exactly why nanotechnology is very exciting. When you can control materials at the nanoscale, you can unlock capabilities that the macro scale world simply cannot offer. At first, I found it very difficult. Of course, it's new for me. There were papers, journals I couldn't understand at my first read. experiments that almost always fail, weeks of work that ended with no results. I feel like I'm walking down a dead end here. It was frustrating, and oftentimes it was painful. But those moments taught me resilience, the discipline to stay with the problems that refuse to be solved. And those years created my identity as a scientist. And when I hear the phrase, the stars will align, I think of all the moments that felt uncertain to me. First, I'm coming from an underestimated region, East Nusa Tenggara, where limitation becomes problem. Then I was competing in a stronger academic environment at UI and at ITB, facing the fear of not being good enough, facing the fear of an imposter syndrome. And even I have to learn new scientific fields from zero. But yet, step by step, the stars did align, but not magically. Painfully, gradually, and purposefully. And if there is one message that I want to bring to this stage, it is this: resilience is not born from comfort zone. It is born from being stretched, challenged, and pushed beyond what you think you can do. People often see the good story, the polished part of someone's story, but they never realize the long nights, the failures, the battles that they have been through. So my message is, get out of your comfort zone. Find something that challenges you and makes you want to dedicate your time day and night with discipline, and resilience will grow along your journey. I believe deeply in this idea that pain and failures are necessary, indispensable of building strength. Just like in science, a muscle becomes bigger and stronger only after pressure and after stress, after transformation. A growing muscle is the one that consistently endures the pain. And in life, it is the same. A life that is forged by failure, doubt, and loss will form a stronger character and be better prepared to face all the challenges in the future. My work as a scientist and a chemist reinforces this metaphor. In chemistry, even the smallest structures determine the greatest characteristics. Pressure creates resilience, stress creates new properties, disruption creates innovation. And in my own journey, pain and failures have been the very forces that shape who I am today. So now I stand here not as someone who always succeeded, but as someone who kept moving forward even when things felt very difficult. I started my talk with a question, and I want to leave you with a question. What challenge are you facing right now? And what if that challenge is precisely what's preparing you for your next breakthrough? Because maybe the stars are not waiting to align for us. Maybe we are the ones who must keep walking until they do align. My name is Grandprix. Thank you for your kind attention.